Hello and welcome to the First Person Civil War podcast, which retells the stories of the soldiers and officers on the ground in the battles of the Civil War. My name is Bill Coughlin, and I am the host of this podcast. I have been thinking about doing this podcast for some time now, and while researching the first 3 episodes of this podcast, I came across a statement, that of Leander Stillwell, of Company D, 61st Illinois, who wrote with his description of the Battle of Shiloh, which sums up the purpose of this podcast better than this historian could. And he said, "It is not my purpose in telling my story of the Battle of Shiloh to say anything that will add to this volume of discussion. My age at the time was but 18, and my position that of a common soldier in the ranks. It would therefore be foolish in me to assume the part of a critic. Let the generals and historians, therefore, write of the movements of corps, divisions, and brigades. I have not to tell but the simple story of what one private saw on one of the bloodiest battles of the war." And that excerpt was from his story that he published entitled, "The Story of a Common Soldier of Army Life in the Civil War, 1861 to 1865. This podcast is dedicated to retelling stories such as these, the men and officers in the ranks, both Union and Confederate. And now my background. My interest in history, and the Civil War in particular, spans decades now. In fact, my family has a direct connection to the Civil War. John Coughlin, a native of Ireland, enlisted as a private in Company C of the 69th New York in late September 1861. He was wounded in action at the Battle of Antietam on September 17, 1862, and discharged shortly thereafter. As a child, history and the Civil War became a constant topic of interest, and I eventually got a bachelor's degree in history in 2010. My family's service to this nation began with John Coughlin, but has continued through the generations and even to the present day. I was a field artillery officer in the Army for 10 years after college, and after completing my service, I studied at Western Connecticut State University, where I obtained a master's degree in history. I'm an American historian with special attention to U.S. military history and the American Civil War. I apply this specifically through preservation by volunteering and working at museums. But with this podcast, I can expand my work with preservation through reintroduction of stories from the Civil War to an audience around the world. Now on to the podcast. This introduction and the first 3 episodes are now available on podcasting apps. Each episode's format places the soldier story in the forefront. I will begin the episode by providing information about the soldier or officer, where he came from, and what regiment or brigade he served in. Concerning the battle or campaign, I will only provide the relevant information as it pertained to the unit at its particular part of the battlefield. I will not discuss an entire battle. Official reports and other primary sources will also be interspersed to ensure a full picture is captured. To anyone that is interested in further reading of the book used for a specific episode, I will attach information in each episode's show notes of where I found the book. Expect new episodes on Wednesdays, and if you would like more information about the podcast, you can find it at our website, firstpersoncivilwarpodcast.com. Again, my name is Bill Coughlin. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the First Person Civil War podcast.